the Gamer Seuss Twitch channel, and we've got another special presentation for you. The last one seemed to go over really well, even though there was a couple of technical difficulties. So we're going to go ahead and do it at this time a little bit better prepared. We're going to do the countdown of the most watched cartoons in the 90s, starting with 1991, going all the way up to 1999. And we should have everything working out pretty good this time. Now, let's see. Let me bring up my notes just to be ready for us there. Okay. Now, let's get things started. The number one cartoon back in 1990. Let me see here. Okay. Oh, shoot. 1990. Hold on here. Gotta find my scene. Nope, it's not Doug. Is it Captain Planet and the Planeteers? Captain Planet and the Planeteers was an cartoon phenomenon. Kids loved this show. And I mean, everybody seemed to be tuning in to watch the next episode as the five kids, each representing one of the primal elements plus the fifth element of heart, come together to form Captain Planet to save the environment. It was environmental protection. It was good, wholesome superhero type fun, and everybody was watching it in 1991. Now, that wasn't the only big one in 91. So let's see. Moving on. Let's see. 91, it should be. Let's make sure I've got the right one set up next. Yep. Next, we have the Tiny Toon Adventures. Steven Spielberg came out with the Tiny Toon Adventures, which is the children of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and all that. So you got Babs and Buster Bunny, and you've got all these different characters, and they were having really wacky adventures in Acme University, or Luniversity, I should say. And everybody was singing the theme song. They're tiny, they're toony, they're all a little loony, and in this cartoony, we're invading your TV. They were amazing. It was a lot of fun to watch. Just cartoon hijinks at its finest. So Tiny Toon Adventure was definitely one of the big ones in 1991. Let's see. 91 though was a big one because there was also, let's see here, if I've got the right one next, Tailspin. Yep. I'm going to close them as I finish them. Tailspin was an interesting take. Disney came out with a cartoon based around the popular bear Baloo from the Jungle Book, Mowgli's pal Baloo. But in this one, Baloo is a pilot, and he goes around doing pilot missions in Tailspin. So it was a lot of big fun back in 1990. Let's see. After that, okay. Not to be outdone by Disney. One of her favorite comedians had one of his comedy routines turned into a cartoon. Bobby's World. Howie Mandel's Bobby's World. Bobby's World. And it was a fun romp, kind of cartoonized reminiscence of Bobby's childhood, set in a comic book theme, exaggerated and made silly and funny and campy and all good fun, and kids loved it. Bobby's World really kind of ruled the airwaves for a little bit there. Let's see. Any others in 91? Oh, wrong screen. Let's see, 91. Oh, yeah, we had one other big one. It was an adaptation from a movie, actually. A real campy horror sci-fi movie. Can anybody guess what it is? If you guessed Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, you were right. What happens when a mad scientist does experiments and gives tomatoes intelligence and they decide to fight back against their oppressors, especially, those who eat pizza? Uh, you get Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. And back in the day, there was a campy movie. In fact, there was even a sequel. It was even campier than the first one. The sequel starred a very, very young George Clooney. But Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, the cartoon, was just a funny, like, action adventure romp where, the humans were fighting back against the tomatoes on a weekly basis. And believe it or not, it was so ridiculous, kids loved it. It absolutely rocked. So, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes was one of the most popular cartoons in 1990. Now, moving on to 1991, we had Doug. Let me make sure. Yep, Doug. Doug was one of those just nerdy kid that went out and hung out with his friends, uh, did normal kid things, went to school and stuff. But it was just a fun little feel good kind of cartoon that kids enjoyed. Uh, Speaking of kids, of course, if you're going to go 91, yeah, Doug was good, but another one that was even possibly bigger than Doug was the Rugrats. Everybody wanted to see what happened when Angelica tortured and was tortured by Tommy and his friends in the Rugrats. It was basically what happened when Granny wasn't paying attention and the babies got to do their little adventures and imagination and everything. There's Tommy and Angelica and all of their friends, and it was just another one of them feel good kind of little crazy bratty fun thing when everything is new and exciting with kids. Excuse me. The next one was really not for kids so much. It was the Ren and Stimpy show. Now, Ren and Stimpy was one of those cartoons really more geared towards older, teenage to adult, but people into the fart jokes and things. It was I love you, Ren. You fat bloated idiot. Shut up and look stupid. If you don't shut up, I'll roll you up in a little ball and I'll shove you up your own butt. Yes. They would have really kind of rude, campy adventures with farts and hair cream and flies and gross outs and it was like I said geared towards teenage boys and irreverent adults. Ren and Stimpy was a lot of fun and it had a few side kind of cartoons like attached to it, like I am Weasel, uh, and it's log, it's big, it's heavy, it's wood, kind of faux commercials that you were supposed to like you could be amused by and have fun with. So Ren and Stimpy was another one of those that was really big in 91. Now, finally, this other one was another one of them feel good ones. Was for kids. Is actually I believe it was from foreign developers. It was The Adventures of Tintin. I did not watch this one. It was big in 91, but it just wasn't one of them that floated my boat. Tintin was an intrepid like investigator, I believe, Correct me in the comments down below if you know a little bit more about the show. It just wasn't my cup of tea, but uh, for the most part, I watch all these shows. Not all of them, but for the most part. And Revenge of the Tintin was a big one. Now we're back. Now we're off to 1992, and in '92 we had the premiere of X-Men: The Animated Series. Now this series is so popular that Disney just brought it back uh, under the heading X-Men '97 because that was the last year that it aired, but it premiered in '92. X-Men '97 though just came back, and it's getting ready to have another season of the show. It's got many of the same voice actors doing the parts, and some of the same animators and writers and everything. So X-Men '97 is really the X-Men: The Animated Adventures continued, and rarely do you get that with a cartoon series. But this was a runaway favorite. It was one of those that got even non-comic book readers to love the X-Men and familiarize them with several of the popular X-Men characters. And that's just in time for the X-Men movie to come out shortly after that. I can't remember what year the X-Men movie came out, but in '92 we were watching X-Men the Animated Series, and it was a phenomenon to say the least. And to say the animated series that goes along with the next one, Batman the Animated Series, probably the most popular cartoon adaptation of Batman to come out. For one thing, it introduced uh, the return of Mark Hamill as the voice of the Joker, and he is widely considered one of the best Jokers out. Even though he was just the voice of the Joker, Mark Hamill gave the Joker a spooky quality. So kids ate up Batman the Animated Series uh, uh, almost as much as X-Men the Animated Series. They were both widely popular, and in 1992, you pretty much didn't turn on your TV during their time slots and not see that. If your parents wanted to watch something else at that time, you were pretty bummed. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then we had one of our anime imports. Girls went crazy for this one. Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon, of course. I didn't watch Sailor Moon a lot, but I do know the Sailor Moon were kind of like a female group of Power Rangers. They got their powers. I'm not sure how. Like I said, I didn't really watch this one, but girls were watching this like crazy, and many of the boys too. I had a lot of guys friends that loved Sailor Moon. That just wasn't mine. I was a kid of the '80s and I was class of '89 in high school, so I technically was graduated, but I was still watching cartoons in the '90s. Uh, and Sailor Moon just wasn't one of the ones I watched personally, and I had nothing against anime. It just wasn't one that I ended up. I don't think it actually aired on a station I got at the time. That may have been the main reason why I didn't watch it. But Sailor Moon was being watched by a lot of people. Okay, now I think that winds up 1992. Just double check with my notes here. Yep. Okay, we're off to 1993. And 93 gave us another Spielberg classic, one that took over the airwaves, the Animaniacs. It's the Warner Brothers and the Warner sister Dot. They have fun being like disruptive and chaotic on the Warner studio lot. And they had a bunch of side comics that went along with it. It was, it's time for Animaniacs, and we're zany to the max. So just sit back and relax. You'll laugh till you collapse. We're Animaniacs. Come eat Pinky and the Brain who want to rule the universe. Button chases Mindy. Rita slaps him with her purse. You know, it was they had a montage of different side cartoons. And it was the introduction of cartoons like Pinky and the Brain was on the Animaniacs show, and they ran a bunch of different shorts starring Yakko, Wacko, and Dot, starring Piggy and the Brain, starring Button and Mindy's, and they just had a lot of fun. Animaniacs was one of those like irreverent, fun, wacky, chaos kind of things. Um, think Looney Tunes on steroids. And in addition to the Animaniacs, we had another one of those adult cartoons, Beavis and Butthead. This was an MTV cartoon. This is for the rock generation. It was two stoned out rocker kids who just basically did nothing and enjoyed it. It was, Beavis, Butthead, I am the great Cornelio. I need TV for my bungo. It was Beavis and Butthead were rebel rock teenagers. I mean, Butthead wore an AC/DC T-shirt quite often. Sometimes they wore Metallica. They often had heavy metal bands on their shirts. They went around doing all kinds of things. Beavis would get tweaked out on sugar and caffeine and become the great Cornelio. He would pull his shirt up over his head and come around and say, I need TV for my bunghole. And it was just irreverent. Total crazy fun. It was also the kind of where King of the Hill spun off from. It was loosely based on a character they used to torment in the Beavis and Butthead show. Anyway, excuse me. So let's see. We got Beavis and Butthead. It's 93. Oh, another one that was big in 93 was Rocko's Modern Life. Now, I didn't watch a lot of this one, but I did see the occasional episode. It was funny. It was similar to stuff like I Am Weasel and Cat Dog and Courage the Cowardly Dog type stuff. But actually, I think it predates Courage. Courage is on its list. You'll be seeing it. But Rocko's one I didn't watch a whole bunch. But him and his friends went and did various things. But it was very popular around a lot of kids. I mean, you can't always catch all the cartoons. I mean, while it's on, I was watching something else. Speaking of something else, SWAT Cats and the Radical Squadron. That was one I watched. Now, the SWAT Cats was basically a special weapons and tactics group of anthropomorphic cats, and they went out and they fought crime. It was one of those in the style of like Dino Riders and things like that, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Bikers Mice from Mars or those kind of things where you took anthropomorphic characters, gave them very human type or superhuman type jobs, and sent them out. And it was just a lot of fun. And as most of you could probably tell, I'm more into the action superhero type cartoons than anything. Let's see, take a look at my notes here. Okay, we also have a couple of honorable mentions, not quite as popular as these ones, but they were also big in 1993. First off was Mighty Max. I didn't watch a lot of Mighty Max, but it was an honorable mention because in the research I did, it came out just under the wire compared to the rest. I mean, there's no definitive listing of the popularity, but these are based on most widely recognized numbers like Nelson ratings and things like that from the time period. I do want to thank my different research throughout the internet for that, and of course Google Image for providing all of these pictures of the cartoons. That is where I source my pictures. Finally, the other honorable mention was one of those cartoon adaptations of a video game, Sonic the Hedgehog. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog went out as one of the first adaptations of the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon. Of course, we've had several since then, including quite popular semi-live action movies. They're still going, starring Jim Carrey as Professor Robotnik. And Sonic the Hedgehog was just a mad success on the Sega system for video games, so much so that they spun it off into a cartoon, following in the footsteps of the Super Mario Brothers and Pac-Man from the 80s, who tried to do the same thing with different mixed results. I mean, Pac-Man was one of the hottest when it came out, and Super Mario Brothers was at least an honorable mention, if I remember, from our 80s show. So, video game adaptations are big. Now, let's see here. That's 93. In 1994, we had another one of those feel-good cartoons. Come on. The Magic School Bus. And the Magic School Bus was interesting. It's one of those educational ones where the teacher, I can't remember her name, who drove the Magic School Bus would bring a bunch of kids on rides. The school bus would take them on a magic trip, and they would learn through their trip. They would go through history, and they would science, and they might like travel the actual ear canal to see how the human body's ears worked, or the digestive system, or the solar system. You know, that's what the Magic School Bus was about. It was a learning, fun cartoon. You know, in the era when we had started to move away from a lot of those learning cartoons as much. I mean, we still had like Sesame Street and stuff, but like the Electric Company had stopped really going. The Great Space uh, Coaster was not going anymore, I believe. You know, but you got the Magic School Bus brought back in a lot of that learning while being entertained for the kids. And you know, later on they added even more learning to entertain stuff. I mean, for the really really young kids, and we're going to feature some more of them on this list. Let's see. Back to my notes. Magic School Bus. Okay. Oh, the next one was more of a runaway hit than anybody expected when it first came out. In fact, so much they're working on a live action adaptation. I'm not sure where they are on it now, but Gargoyles. Gargoyles was a mythic adventure. You can watch it on Disney Plus right now. And Gargoyles in the medieval times they protected humanity, from a, a an evil force that was trying to take over this good force humans, and the Gargoyles was there to protect them. The Gargoyles got betrayed. They are they turn to stone in sunlight, and so they can only come out at night. But they end up getting frozen in stone for a couple of centuries, and they wake up in modern day New York, and they have adventures, and they take names from New York. So like the one that's more like a dog than a anthropomorphic, more humanoid one is called Bronx. You know, it's just you really it's hard to explain it. It's just you have to see it because it was a runaway hit. Everybody loved the Gargoyles, and like I said, they're working on a live action adaptation. I'm not sure how well they're going to be able to do that, but if they do it well, I'll enjoy it. Gargoyles was one of those that I watched pretty avidly. Now, I mentioned in the '80s show uh, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and it was by far my favorite of the Spider-Man cartoons. But in the '90s, they tried to cash in on Spider-Man again with his own more solo career, Spider-Man the Animated Series. Kind of like in the spirit of the X-Men animated series or Batman the Animated Series. Spider-Man the Animated Series came out, and it was pretty popular. It was really good adaptation. It tried to stay fairly true to the comic book source material, and the animation was really good. The Adventures of Spider-Man uh, really took off, and I think a lot of kids enjoyed it. I know I did. Um, when he went up against Doctor Octopus and Tombstone and Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, Magneto, even. Uh, it was a great cartoon to check out. Let's see, is there any more from this time? This is okay. Yeah, we also have a couple more honorable mentions for this year. Let's see, we've got The Tick. The Tick was one of those irreverent, funny cartoons. He was a superhero, but he was big and dumb and just went and did his thing. And he had his sidekick, Arthur, and it was just a kind of a campy, fun thing. They eventually had a live action one. Patrick Warburton voiced the animated and then later on played the live action Tick. Um, he was, like I said, he was big, dumb, muscle bound hero that tried to do his superhero thing, but he wasn't the brightest uh, bulb on the tree. I mean, but it was fun. Arthur was smarter, but he was nerdy. He was basically he had a lunar moth costume, although he looked like a sad rabbit most of the time because he had like his moth antennae looked more like rabbit ears. And there was some other campy kind of heroes that you'd meet through the Tick's adventures. But the Tick was a lot of fun, and it definitely deserves the honorable mention. In addition to the Tick, we had Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego? When I talked about educational, this was the year for educational shows to come back on cartoons and stuff. Carmen Sandiego was a whodunit that took kids around the globe. And Where on Earth in Carmen Sandiego, while you were looking for Carmen Sandiego and you were trying to solve the mysteries of the week, you were also learning about other countries and other cultures and traveling across the globe and getting out of America and seeing the world. So Where on Earth in Carmen Sandiego was a globe-trotting adventure, and kids loved it. So it definitely deserves the honorable mention. It may not have been the absolute most popular during the year, but it was one of 1994's popular cartoons. Now on to 1995, and in 1995 we get another spin-off of one that we've already seen because the Animaniacs introduced us to Pinky and the Brain, and they were so widely popular they got their own show. And everybody wanted to watch Pinky and the Brain. And it started basically the same as the shorts did on the Animaniacs. It's what you want to do today, Brain? Same thing we do every day, Pinky. Try to take over the world. No. Pondering what I'm pondering. Well, thanks so, Brain. Well, Where are we going to get the live chicken? You know, they would say the most zany things. And Pinky, the super genius laboratory mouse, uh, would try to take over the world with his idiot sidekick Pinky, and he'd fail every time. Usually, probably because of something stupid that Pinky did. But that was okay. I mean, that was the campy fun of it, and it was, like I said, so widely popular as a short in the Animaniacs that it spun off into its own show, and everybody was wearing Pinky in the Brain T-shirts. They were quoting Pinky in the Brain. They had the lunch boxes. It was something. Let's see. Outside of Pinky in the Brain, okay, we already did the Rugrats, didn't we? Yeah, we already did the Rugrats. I think they came back for a new Rugrats season. Oh yes. Then there was uh what's it call it? Neon Genesis Evangelion or Evangelion, and that was another one of the anime imports. I didn't get a chance to watch it a lot, but I heard good things. I really love that one. Uh, from what I heard about it, but like I said, I didn't really get to watch it. But it was huge. It was another one of those anime imports, and anime throughout the 80s and 90s, anime came in occasionally. It wasn't always big, but most of it was really well received. Um, and it Neon Genesis Evangelion was one of those that was talked about quite a bit. Uh, Now in '95, we had one more big one, and this one was a cartoon adaptation of a movie that was an adaptation of a Dark Horse comic book, The Mask animated series. Jim Carrey made him so popular in the movie Rubberface himself that The Mask got his own animated TV show, and and it was basically just what you would expect: the zany antics of the Mask character going around. Stanley Ipkiss dressed up in the yellow suit with the big feather in his hat, doing all kinds of wacky things, and basically saving the day with his own special brand of comic book, cartoon, comedic, humorous superhero heroism. So that was the big thing with The Mask. Um, let's see here. And that brings us to the halfway mark. That's when I started kind of messing up in the 1980s one. So what I did is I made a separate file for 96 to 99, uh, basically to balance out my thing. So now let's turn off the others and go into the next year. And we had Hey Arthur. Hey Arthur was our big one in 1996. A lot of people are watching it. That's another one of those ones I didn't watch, but I know it was kind of one of those feel good, similar to Doug. Arthur went to school. He had like a football shaped head. I guess that came into play occasionally. Uh, but like I said, it's not one that I personally watched, but it was all over the place. I saw it on T-shirts, and I knew people that watched it. It just wasn't one that I personally watched. I didn't really watch a lot of the next one either because it was aimed at younger audiences, but it deserves a mention because it was so prolific. Uh, let's see. Hey Arthur. Okay, no, we're back to oh, there we go. There we go. Hey Arthur. After that was Blues Clues. It was aimed for a younger audience, so I didn't watch it a whole lot, but I know kids of that the younger age, the toddlers and stuff, absolutely loved Blues Clues. It was one of those that was taken over the airwaves from things like Sesame Street and uh, the Electric Company and Oh, I can't think of all those kids type programs at the time, but Blue's Clues was so uh, heavily watched that you just couldn't get away from it. All the really really young kids wanted Blues merchandise, and they had to watch Blue when it came on. I could still hear some of the songs even though I don't want to. Mail time uh, was one of the anyway. Blues Clues was really big in '96. Let's see. Okay. In addition to Blues Clues, okay, we get another one of those animated series. The animated series seemed to be a popular subtitle to cartoons, and in this case, we got Superman, the animated series. Another one of the Superman adaptations. Superman has been adapted for years since he was first developed, and he's grown and gotten more and more powerful as it went along. And Superman in the animated series is one of the more popular versions through the WB, where they went and would see Superman, Lois, and Jimmy Olsen uh, go through their typical Superman antics. Pretty much Superman fare has been the same since it was in black and white. Uh, but this was another adaptation, and it was fairly popular for the time. Let's see. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay, I think we're out of that year. We're into the next year. Superman. Yep, 1997, and really, 1997 was really ruled by two main cartoons. First off, that's when the Pokemon craze hit America. Everybody was watching Ash Ketchum and the Pokemon. They wanted to see what Pikachu was going to do. Pika Pika, Pikachu. And Pokemon was on everybody's mind. People were playing the Pokemon card game. They were playing the video games for Pokemon, and they were watching Ash Ketchum in the cartoon. Pokemon was and still is a global phenomenon. So you got to check out Pokemon if you want to be a cool kid from the 1997. Pokemon was it. And then the next one, the only thing that could possibly compete with Pokemon was completely on the other side of the scale when it came to animation and stuff. It was poor paper doll animation, but still going to this day, and adults and older kids especially love it. Yep, I'm talking about where is it? South Park. Everybody seemed to love South Park. Oh my God, you killed Kenny, you bastard! Eh, yeah, yeah, I don't have any jizz, Kenny. I hate you, Kenny. It was just everybody loved to see what Cartman was going to do next. Um, what was going to happen with Kyle? You know, kick the baby. Oh, kick the baby. Kick the baby. And Chef, who left eventually. Uh, oh my God, children! But South Park hit the airwaves, and the first one I heard, I had no idea when I first tuned into a South Park episode, and the first one I ever saw was the Christmas episode, Mr. Hinky the Christmas Pooh. Uh, he was a magical piece of poo that brought toys to the good boys and girls at Christmas time. I mean, how correct can you get? But it's still going to this day. I mean, and they just recently did an obesity special. They've done a couple of movies. They've done all kinds of things. They've had so many special guests. Uh, they did a spoof episode where they talked about how the Simpsons did it, uh, because the Simpsons had done everything before everybody else did it, and South Park was following along. It's they've done Star Wars adaptation one. They've done World of Warcraft. They've pretty much touched on just about everything in pop culture and the media that they could possibly find, make fun of, what have you, and they do it with a Trey Parker's special brand of irreverence. So South Park is probably one of the only things that could compete with Pokemon in 1997. Let's see, where's my notes? Do had some honorable mentions though in '97. Like I said, you couldn't really compete with Pokemon or South Park, but these ones still deserve to be called out for their time. First off, King of the Hill, like I said, loosely spun off of Beavis and Butthead. King of the Hill um, follows a uh, propane salesman in the South, and he's got very redneck friends, and they spend a lot of their time just drinking beer in the fence in front of his house. Uh, his friend, one friend, Boomhauer's so southern you can't understand him, and that's on purpose. They do that purposely, slur him so you can't understand him. And there's propane is good clean energy, and he's loosely based on the character that drove around in the RV in Beavis and Butthead, but he was kind of retooled and made a little different. But he was inspired by that character. I do believe that's true. Now, if I'm wrong about that, correct me. If somebody else knows something different, correct me in the comments, because I don't mind being corrected. And like I said, anybody who knows some of these other cartoons that I'm not as familiar with, feel free to comment as well, because I'd love to hear more about them. And that's part of what this is good for. This list is not only to tell people of today what people were watching in the 90s, but to also hear what other people were watching in the 90s, and what was there a cartoon that I missed in 97, for instance. Now there's some more honorable mentions. I'm not done honorable mentioning. There was also Daria. Daria was another one of those. She was more of the loner, rebel reclusive, not exactly goth girl, not exactly, she was a little bit of emo. He was the insightful teenager, was like fed up with the idiot adults around her kind of thing. I didn't watch a whole lot of Daria either, but I'm familiar with the cartoon, and that was basically the theme. And Daria was another one of those irreverent shows. There was a couple more honorable mentions in '97. First off was Cow and Chicken. Now, Cow and Chicken was a spinoff of Ren and Stimpy, and that era stuff, cat dog stuff like that. And Cow and Chicken, they were brother and sister adopted, and the most unlikely two siblings you'll ever meet, and they got into all kinds of zany adventures. And Cow was the big baby, and Chicken was the big brother, and you just had to love their antics. It was one of those things that you watched on. I think that was Nickelodeon for Cow and Chicken. I think the other one we had from was also Nickelodeon at the time was Johnny Bravo. He spoke with a kind of almost a bad Elvis impression accent. He thought he was a big macho man trying to get the girls. Um, wore shades, was too cool for school, and went walking around. But he thought he was cooler than everybody else did. But I mean, he was big and had muscles and stuff, but he was more a screw up than someone who had it all together. But he thought he had it all together, and you could tell every time he combed his hair back and was like, Johnny Bravo, huh, and did a pose, like he is in this snapshot here. Oh, let me make sure that you guys can see these Yep. Okay. Uh, want to make sure I wasn't having technical difficulties again. But yeah, Johnny Bravo was another honorable mention for 97. We're almost done here. Coming into 98, we got quite a few entries in 98. Uh, one of them, the first one, was so widely popular, and we were talking about Nickelodeon cartoons, Powerpuff Girls, badly animated, terrible, cheesy, wonderful Powerpuff Girls. They even had a short-lived project for live action, but it fell through. It was going to star um, oh, I can't remember her name from uh, Agents of Shield, and I couldn't don't remember who was going to play the other two, but I think she was going to play Blossom. But there were three laboratory experiments that turned into superhero girls. They left like rainbow streaks behind them when they flew. Um, they helped the diminutive mayor. It was fun. They had really weird kind of bad guys like Mojo Jojo. He was Mojo Jojo. Yeah, Mojo Jojo talked in very um, regimented kind of tone, or there was kind of the androgynous him who was basically supposed to be like Satan, and they would go and fight. They never quite said it was Satan, but it was implied that him was like an androgynous Satan character, uh, and the Powerpuff Girls were the only help. I don't remember the name of the city that they helped with. If anybody remembers that, they could drop that in the comments as well. But Girls was huge in 98. And moving on, 98 brought us Futurama. Okay. Uh, talk about how widely accepted The Simpsons still is. Futurama was another creation of Matt Groening, the mind behind The Simpsons. In this case, we have a future society. What we do, we have a pizza boy that accidentally gets cryogenically frozen and wakes up many years later in the future, and then he becomes a delivery boy again. But this time he's doing a galactic delivery service for his many times ancestors, a mad scientist who happens to have a delivery spaceship. Uh, they hire a Cyclops named Leela, who's voiced by Katie Seagal. You might remember her. She was Peg Bundy in the Bundy show. Um, but she went on to a big part of it was voicing Leela in Futurama after that. And then Bender, the robot who just had one simple dream to kill all humans. But his best friend was Fry, the boy from 1990s who came into the future. And there's all kinds of things. They beam commercials into your head. They have blob like aliens that eat people. They have a soda pop named Slurm that ends up coming from an alien's butt. Um, they have uh, kind of an evil granny who designs the robots, and she's like the robot overseer. There's robot Satan. They'll take the robots to robot hell. And it was you got to watch it, and they're making new episodes. I think it's Hulu that has the rights to make new Futurama episodes right now. But Futurama came out spinning. from the mind of, not a spinoff of, but from the mind of Matt Groening, the person who brought us The Simpsons. We get Futurama, and Futurama is uh, huge. 1998. Let's see. Then we had Cat Dog. Was that an honorable mention? No, it was not. Cat Dog was another one that was big. I didn't watch a lot of it, but it was similar. It was a cat and dog Siamese twin. Somehow they're linked together, and I don't know how that story went, but they got into adventures together. Um, like I said, I didn't watch this one, so if you did, drop a comment in the comments. Let me know what you think of Cat Dog and what it was about. Kind of give me the 15-second preview of Cat Dog. Also, Cowboy Bebop, another anime import. Basically, space mercenaries. It had a semi-recent live action adaptation that didn't go over real well, but Cowboy Bebop is another one of those anime ones that a lot of kids were watching. I didn't watch a whole lot of Cowboy Bebop. I did get the occasional episode, but if you didn't watch it a lot, I guess it was one of those that was kind of hard to follow. It was a little bit more serialized than other cartoons, so you kind of had to know what was going on from week to week. If you didn't watch it regularly, you kind of didn't keep up. But it was very popular. Let's see. Oh, and then this is the one I was actually watching. This is one of my guilty pleasures. It's not like one of the highest rated, but for cartoon stuff, it was Ed, Ed, and Eddie. The antics in the cul-de-sac. Excuse me. Of these three little miscreants who were basically out to get quarters to buy jawbreakers. That's their main goal in life. They always wanted jawbreakers. Excuse me. Let me blow my nose here. Out of tissues. But Ed, Ed, and Eddie was a guilty pleasure that I kind of loved. That might have been muffled as I was blowing it. I was kind of had my mouth covered. But anyway, yeah, I loved Ed, Ed, and Eddie, and they deserve an honorable mention. Even if they weren't like the number one rated, they were pretty popular, and I definitely recommend them. Um, but finally, we're up to the last year, and this is 1999, and just check something real quick, just to see if anybody has popped in the chat. Nobody's popped in the chat. Just wanted to check. But the the next one is the Wild Thornberrys. In 1999, Wild Thornberrys was one of those shows that everybody kind of watched. And I didn't watch this a lot, but it was basically a family that were off on a camper and going through adventures. And the Wild Thornberrys was their name. I'm not sure what. I guess the dad was like an archaeologist. I'm not sure what the mom was. I didn't watch it, but it was watched quite a lot. I do know that. And it was in the spirit of like Rugrats and things like that. It was similar animation. I think it was even came from the same studio as the Rugrats. Still, the Wild Thornberrys was a big one in '99. Oh wait, I'm sorry. No, where am I at? Wild Thornberrys. Wild Thornberrys. Oh, Wild Thornberrys is also a honorable mention from '98. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. Now we're into '99. And '99 had one that I totally disagree with in popularity, but it's still popular to this day. It's one of those runaway sensations. Everybody was watching it, and I can't stand him. Yep, we're talking about SpongeBob SquarePants, a sponge that lived in the bottom of the ocean with he's square like a sponge, so he has square pants. And he's got a friend that's a starfish, um, named Patrick, and another one, a friend named Squidbert. I think he's a squid, and you know he's zany the antics with various fish. Then they've got a rabbit friend that would wear underwater breathing apparatuses so that she could do things in soggy bottom with them. He's got a pet snail because, of course, snail is the kind of thing you'd keep as a pet on the bottom of the ocean. And he's got an arch nemesis named Plankton. You know, I actually know for one that I didn't really watch. I got enough contact contamination from it that I know a lot about it. Hey, Patrick. SpongeBob. SpongeBob. Me crusty patty. Yeah, I can do the occasional voice from SpongeBob, but I hate, personally, can't stand this cartoon. But it's wildly popular, so who am I to say? It was aimed at a different generation than me. Other than that, everything else in 1999 is two more, and they're both honorable mentions, but they're fairly big honorable mentions. First off, Family Guy came out from the people who brought us. Well, no, Family Guy was the first thing we really got to know from Seth MacFarlane. Later on, we got American Dad. So Family Guy was really the first. But Family Guy is, talks about Peter Griffin, who works in a toy factory, his wife Lois, his son Chris, who is awkward, his daughter Meg, who's often teased and very boyish, their baby that wants to take over the world, very Pinky and the Brain-esque, super genius, and their talking dog Brian, who smokes irreverent. Their crazy, almost pedophilic neighbor Quagmire, and Joe, the wheelchair riding ex-cop, or say ex-cop, but actually I think he's still an active cop in a lot of the episodes. His wife Bonnie, who's voiced by Jennifer Tilly, of horror movie fame. You might have seen him in The Bride of Chucky, for instance. She obviously played the Bride of Chucky. Both live action as herself. She played herself in later movies in the Child Play franchise, actually. But she was the voice of Joe's wife. Joe was voiced by Patrick Warburton, of the same who voiced the Tick, and Seth MacFarlane voiced almost everybody else. He voices Brian and Stewie and Peter Griffin. Other people, Kunis from that 70s show, Mia Kunis voices Meg. I don't remember who voices Lois, but Family Guy was huge. It's one of those adult primetime cartoons in the spirit of The Simpsons and Futurama, King of the Hill. Really not aimed for kids. Very irreverent humor. And finally, to round this all out, we have Courage the Cowardly Dog. Another one from the Cartoon Network franchise. Courage lives in nowhere with Eustace and Muriel. But strange things happen in nowhere, and Courage has to handle them. And Courage is not the bravest dog in the world, but he has to handle so much stuff. You got to give it to Courage. Uh, and Muriel loves Courage to death. Is Courage, she's got a brogue. And then Eustace can't stand it. Stupid dog. But a lot of people were watching Courage the Cowardly Dog on Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, in the 90s were the big primary providers of cartoon. We kind of had gotten away from the Saturday morning cartoon as much because we had now had entire networks dedicated to cartoons. And so that's when we got things like Ed, Edd and Eddy and the Powerpuff Girls and Courage the Cowardly Dog. And it was just one of those eras when cartoons were kind of they were different, but they were fun. I hope you enjoyed this run through memory lane with me. If I missed a cartoon in the 90s that debuted in the 90s, I'll make sure it's one of them that debuted in one of these years. And you think that it's one of them I should have mentioned, let me know in the comments. Also, remember to like, subscribe, follow, tell your friends, share it. And because my channel is dedicated to Extra Life, part of the Children's Miracle Network, and they help kids with long-term conditions. This has been Game Time. I am Doc, also known as Gamer Seuss, on the Gamer Seuss channel, King of Nerds, at least in my neck of the woods. And we'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm glad it went a lot easier than it did on the 80s. And let me know if you'd like to see more of these. I can go back to the 70s. I was a kid in the 70s. I was born in 1971. So I watched a lot of the cartoons in the 70s. We could do the 70s. We can do the year 2000s. We could do some other things. If anything else you think you might want to hear from me, drop me a comment. Let me know. Anyway, signing off with the immortal words of Stan Lee. Excelsior. Have a great time. Play more games. Watch more cartoons. Stay young at heart and have fun.